Senator Xenophon joined us in our Parliament House studio. Nick Xenophon, good morning.
Good morning, Fran.
Senator, the government and the Greens wanted a vote on this emissions trading scheme legislation this week. The Climate Institute says this delay hurts Australia's international credibility. Can you explain why you plan to force this vote on the emissions trading scheme to be delayed now until August?
Sure. Well, I think from the Climate Institute's perspective, we would damage Australia's credibility more if we had an emissions trading scheme that wasn't best suited to Australia's economy, that didn't deliver the best environmental outcome without crash tackling the Australian economy. Let's put this in perspective. The government made a decision not so long ago to delay the implementation of the scheme until July the 1st, 2011. That's 2 years ago. Only last week, in the Senate, two Senate committee reports that I was both on handed down reports in relation to this legislation. There was unanimity amongst non-government senators for different reasons that this legislation wouldn't work, wouldn't deliver good outcomes. The Greens had their perspective, I had mine, the Coalition had theirs. But what was clear, the Coalition agreed with me that there ought to be more modelling done that could be done in the next 5 or 6 weeks on alternative scheme designs in respect of how can we modify this scheme to deliver those better environmental outcomes with a lesser economic impact. And I don't think that's unreasonable. I know in your introduction, Fran, you said that we need more modelling. Well, the only modelling that we've had so far is the government scheme, and the government is behaving a bit like a used car salesman that says, you can test drive just one model and one model only before you buy. I think it's important that we get a chance to look at alternative models.
Yeah, Senator, I think for people listening, trying to get their head around what's going on, it does seem that after years of reviews, reports, Treasury modelling, we're going to get yet more modelling, and what could really possibly be achieved in 6 extra weeks after all that time?
Well, quite a lot can be achieved in 6 extra weeks. And let's begin at the beginning, perhaps, with the Green Paper last year. Now, in the good old days, Green Papers would have robust discussions about various policy options. This Green Paper, and the White Paper for that matter, only had a discussion, an extensive discussion about one scheme, the government's cap and trade. There was a cursory, dismissive look at other alternative schemes. No modelling was done in respect of those. That's been revealed in the Senate inquiry process. That seems extraordinary given the relatively small cost of modelling and the huge economic impact of not getting the scheme design right. So I think a lot can be achieved. What I'm intending to do is to make sure that the modelling is done, preferably via the Productivity Commission. If that's not done, then the alternative is that the modelling will need to be commissioned and then released to the Senate. And as a result of that, there'll be an opportunity to put up amendments to improve the scheme design, not to trash it, not to redesign it from scratch, but actually to make improvements to the current design of the scheme.
I understand that the modelling you're looking at getting done is via a group called Frontier Economics, where the Managing Director, Danny Price, has been pushing for some time the Canadian emissions trading model. Is that what you're interested in, the Canadian model?
Well, I went to the US and Canada earlier this year to talk to government officials in relation to that. The Canadian model is shorthand for an intensity-based scheme. I think that the Canadians have basically told me that they will do whatever the US does because they're so trade dependent on them. But that doesn't mean we should have a debate about what is the best scheme for Australia. We're a small open economy where we've got a lot of energy-intensive industries, and in a nutshell, an intensity-based scheme doesn't have as much revenue churn as this current scheme. It's much more economically efficient from all the evidence that I've seen, and what it will mean is that you won't have the same price impacts on electricity, and therefore you won't need the massive subsidies for industry that the government has in its current scheme. And the corollary of that is that you can actually get a better environmental outcome.
So just back to the politics of this, what deal have you done with the opposition? What's your agreement with the opposition?
Oh, well, in terms of deals, I think the government and the opposition know everything. I tell one side, I tell the other. I know it's not a terribly Machiavellian way of doing things.
You've reached
well, the agreement is that we will not be voting. I don't want to vote, and the coalition doesn't want to vote on the second reading of this bill, on the ETS bills this week. That when we get back in August, in the first sitting week of August, that we will get on with it. And that we will resolve those bills once and for all in the week commencing the 11th of August, and we will continue sitting that week for as long as it takes, so that when some in the government say that you're trying to delay this on the never, that's not true. And I think that the government, in their heart of hearts, knows that given that they're delaying this scheme by 12 months, no harm is being done, and in fact a lot of good can come out of this in a public policy sense.
And this is obviously critical legislation for the country and the globe. The Ozcar scandal's been a bit of a distraction this week from focus on this emissions trading scheme. What's your view of that?
Well, I guess I'm glad I said what I said on Monday morning when I was asked by the media on this, and that was this, that let the Federal Police and the Auditor General do their job. I think that politicians are not the best when it comes to being judge, jury and executioner and these sorts of things. I think that we should let the experts do their job, and I think it is a distraction. I'll tell you what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the emissions trading scheme. I'm worried about the fact that I get calls from irrigators in the Riverland late at night who are desperate because of the crisis in the Murray-Darling Basin. They're the big issues that I'm worried about, and I'll let the guys in the lower house slug it out in their blood sport.
Senator Xenophon, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.